Well, what you're about to hear on Beyond Belief is truly beyond belief. It's an amazing story by Captain Randy Kramer, Marine Corps. And I'm going to have the captain tell us his story because coming from him, you will understand. Randy, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me, George.
I should call you captain. I was in the Navy.
We should do that. It's unofficial. You can call me Randy. People call me captain all the time, but I never get picky about it.
I've been researching you.
Oh, good.
It's an amazing story.
Was an interesting experience to have, I'll tell you that.
Tell us when it happened and what happened to you.
Oh, I mean, it all goes back to, early development and early childhood, being a construct of a program that was genetically engineered, built from the ground up. Training program started when I was a child, when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Training program went until I was 17 years old, and at 17 years old, I was deployed actually into the Covert Military Space Program, sent to Mars for 17 years to be in the MDF.
Wait a minute. Sent to Mars?
Yes.
How were you sent to Mars?
Oh, well, via
a spaceship?
Via a transport ship from the moon, from Luna Operations Command that probably, my guessing, it was probably 4 or 5 stories high, that probably had 4,000 or 5,000 personnel on it at the time.
What year might that have been?
That would have been in 1987.
All right, continue.
So we were put onto a transport ship. Again, I'm guessing about 4,000 or 5,000 people were it held, total. And then that ship took off from Luna Operations Command on the moon. And then that ship went through a wormhole to Mars. So the whole trip, took a few minutes. And then we landed on the tarmac at Ares Primus, which was the military headquarters, corporate headquarters of the Mars colonies. And then I was sent to a forward station far, far north, what I sort of refer to as, Alaska region, as far as, if you were to compare, longitudes and latitudes here on planet Earth, it was very, very far north. So it was a very, very cold region that we were a part of, in a place called Forward Station Zebra, and spent the better part of 17 years in the MDF there.
Randy, do you know how wild this sounds?
I've had some conversations with people, and it blows some people's minds sometimes, yeah.
Do people believe you?
A lot of them surprisingly do. To me, when I say it out loud, I understand how outside the box it sounds, believe me. But having experienced it myself, all I'm really talking about is my own memories, my own perspective of how it happened when I was there. So to me, it's a very matter-of-fact set of experiences because I was there. But I get that it's outside the normal realm of most people's experiences. And to most people, it's a what? What are you talking about? I get that.
I want to find out how this project developed,
sure,
where it is today, what other countries might be doing like that.
Absolutely.
I'm not here to doubt you, nor am I here to destroy your story by any means.
Oh, I appreciate
I just
that.
want to hear from you in your own views. And then we'll let our Beyond Belief audience decide, hey, we think this guy's telling the truth, or maybe he isn't. But let me ask you this.
Please.
If you're not telling the truth, and that's in quotes, okay?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because we're going on the assumption you are.
Right.
But if you're not telling the truth, what are you getting out of this?
Not much. But I also like to point out, if I'm not telling the truth, then I am committing a number of felonies, including felony impersonating an officer. And I have encouraged people who think that I'm not telling the truth to report me to the FBI or to the CMC's office in the Marine Corps. I know some people who have had those conversations, and those people are not interested in talking to me. If I was committing fraud, I would get a letter from the FBI or from the CMC's office telling me to cease and desist, and then my attorney and we could get into that whole conversation. But no one sent me any letters because I'm not committing fraud.
So you're not making $1 million doing this?
No. Are you kidding me? No, I do a few speaking events and a few interviews, and I don't get paid anything.
What do you do in your normal life in terms of job or career?
Oh, I have to work a day job at the moment, which isn't any fun, but it's what I have to do to pay the bills.
Does that day job conflict with this story in the point where people that you work with go, Randy, what is this?
Oh, I don't talk to people at my day job about
what if they see this show?
Well, then we'll have a conversation about it. I'm perfectly open to always talk about it with anybody who wants to talk about it. I don't shy away from it, but I don't want to create a tension in a situation where I don't need attention. I'm not an attention grabber, so I don't go around telling people I went to Mars. It's just not that. big of a deal to me. But when people want to talk about it, I'm more than happy to talk
So
about it.
you're not gaining anything coming out with this story.
No, I have. No, if anything in the last 6 years, it has cost me more than I have ever possibly potentially gained from this in personal relationships, in a destroyed marriage, in a number of other things.
Why? Because they don't believe you?
I don't even want to discuss the particulars of that situation. Let's just say that it was.
Well, let me rephrase the question. Did what you're telling us today affect your marriage?
Let's just say that a third party took advantage of a situation in which they felt could be exploited with someone else's insecurities.
All right, they took advantage of a weakness.
Yeah.
I'm reading the picture.
But to say that, when my ex-wife and I met, she was a firm believer in my telling the truth. So.
And that changed.
And that changed.
Does that disappoint you?
It's heartbreaking. But again, not really here to talk about that. So
I'm sorry you had to go through that, and thank you for sharing part of that with us.
Worries.
I appreciate that. You're not the first person to come forward with these kinds of incredible stories.
Oh, and I won't be the last.
And that leads us to believe that something's going on, whatever it may be.
For sure.
So let's go back to the recruitment portion. I want to look at a little video from deep space inside the program. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
If there is a breakaway civilization, how do they get people to join them? Is there a recruitment process? We shall discover that getting people to join the secret space program is more complex than first imagined. Some are asked, some are made, and some appear to be taken against their will.
There's recruitments where certain individuals are picked to participate in projects and to be a part of particular agendas. I have an experience myself of being recruited to go off planet in 2006 to join a Mars colony, and so there's specific reasons why certain individuals are picked. And to get to the bottom of it is not the easiest thing because, you're unraveling a huge mystery. There's things like quantum access technologies that are used to target individuals. What I discovered in my recruitment process is something called looking glass technologies was used, and something called the Orion's Cube. These were names that were in the emails connected to how I was chosen. And this isn't just tracking me in this particular incarnation. There was a pre-targeting before I was born. So a lot of kind of strategies are in place. If we kind of look at the bigger picture and some of these controller groups and how they manage timelines and how they work with these technologies to achieve a specific desired result. These things have been in the works for a long time. And so when we look at different elements of like the defense departments and things that happened after the Second World War, we're dealing with certain agendas that had good intentions to start with.
Wow.
I love Laura. She's fabulous.
Wow, she's a great person.
Oh, yeah, I know her
dedicated researcher.
Oh, yeah, I know her very well. She's fabulous.
So, Captain, let's go back to the beginning then. Was your family involved in this at all, or were you the first?
I'm pretty certain that my older siblings were also put into programs because of the family's genetic heritage and then whatever mingling that they decided to do at the pre-birth and birthing process. Both of my siblings exhibited early childhood post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms like I did, but I seem to have a better set of coping mechanisms than they did, so I'm not in complete denial about my existence at this point. So I wouldn't say that I was the first, but I would say that I was probably a more perfected version by the time.
Did you go willingly, or did they pull you into it?
Oh, I was. From what I understand, is that it's been told to me, there was a drawing board process in which, part of my mother's DNA and my father's DNA were laid out, and then they decided which parts they wanted to change. So my entire genetic code was, written in a laboratory before it was actually even created as a life form. So I was built from the ground up as a person.
Have you undergone hypnotic regression?
Sure.
And what do they tell you?
Just recovered more clarified memories of my experiences, really, more
But
than
those
anything.
experiences come out in the
Oh yeah,
hypnosis?
absolutely. But I would point out that hypnosis is just trying to get your brain into a natural alpha or theta state, which meditation does anyway. And so most of my memory retrieval is through meditation process to get into theta states. But hypnosis is just someone else walking you through that process to get to those theta states so that you can retrieve your memory.
Well, your brain is like a tape recorder. And I think what
Absolutely.
hypnosis does is it rewinds that tape in a strategic way to get the answers. I've always been convinced, Randy, that if you looked at a crowd of 1,000 people and people would just say, hey, was George Norrie in that crowd? You'd probably say, I don't know.
Right.
I couldn't see him. But under hypnosis, it's in your brain, and I think you could pinpoint, yeah, he was. He was in the 4th row on the left. It happens like that. Now, in this particular case with you, this secret program that was done, how many people do you think are involved in it today?
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, if you want to talk about the covert military space program or secret space program at large, you're talking about, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people at this point.
Are they all knowledgeable of what's happening to them, or are they, walking around in a daze?
It's all compartmentalized. So depending on where you are, what stage of your service in, or whether they've, sent you back and put you, quote unquote, back into your timeline to, live out your fate or your destiny, as sometimes it's referred to. And most of the time, most of those people are returned with repressed memories, so they don't remember much of it. They often have, like I did, a series of emotional, psychological attachments or traumas associated with their experience, but the linear conscious memory is often detached. But if you're still in service, then you're actively remembering what's going on at that time. But for security reasons, they pretty much suppress people's memories when they return them. So I'd say that the majority of people who have returned from service have little or no understanding or memory of what they've experienced. I get emails from people all the time who are in the process of recovering memory and are in the process of getting there, but who are absolutely not even at a stage where they want to go public or do an interview, or, it's the last thing that they want to do. They're still trying to figure out what's going on with themselves. They're in an earlier state, when I say earlier state that I was in myself, which is very confusing because...
Is it frustrating?
Incredibly, because you get these memories. They're very clear, they're very vivid, they're often incredibly visceral and emotionally traumatic, but because they don't match a linear map to what you think you understand your life is, it doesn't make any sense. And so while you're missing those linear components, you're like, well, okay, I remember this. It feels incredibly real. It feels traumatic. It's very vivid, but where's the linear connection? How in the world did I get there? And so a lot of people don't know what to make of their experiences, or, they do like I did for a certain amount of time, which is question their mental health.
I was going to say, did you think you were going crazy?
At times, absolutely. The thing that changed that, which I was so grateful for, I had a very dear friend who is a psychiatrist, actually, and we were sitting in my living room one day having a cup of tea. And I said to him, I'm really not sure what's going on with my head at the moment. I said, I either have this amazing, crazy case of post-traumatic stress disorder that I need to sort out, or I'm absolutely bonkers and I'm really not sure where to go with that. And he was so cool and calm about it, and he was like, well, okay, let's break out the book. And he pulled out the DSM-4, which it was the 4 at that time, and said, let's look at your symptoms, let's look at all of these other possibilities, let's look at schizophrenia, let's look at schizoaffective disorder, let's look at bipolar disorder. And we went through them one at a time.
Ruled them all out.
And we ruled them all out until we got to post-traumatic stress disorder, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down the line. So it was, at that point I felt medically convinced by a medical professional that we had looked at my behavioral health. I did not have enough of symptoms to be labeled or classified as any of the other behavioral health conditions, and I had a solid link to medical post-traumatic stress disorder, which then meant that the experiences that I were having were in fact real traumatic experiences that I had to sort out. So,
are you in the program now?
Which program?
The Mars or the Moon program?
I'm still a part of United States Marine Corps Special Section. Officers have life commissions, which means I don't ever get to get out until the day I die.
Like the CIA. Huh? Once you're in, you're in.
A little
or
bit.
the mob.
Yeah, a little bit. And so I will continue to do my work and be associated with them and, have communications with the command staff. But I'm definitely in a unique position where there's plenty of other people within the program that don't want me, talking publicly, and plenty of other people.
Why are you talking publicly?
Because my brigadier general and the command staff asked me to talk publicly.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Well, they feel, I guess the long and short of that is they feel that the conversations with our extraterrestrial friends and business partners has been that we're supposed to have a global disclosure moment so that people can come into the know and the awareness of that, so that we can be making, when I say we as an entire civilization, as the people, can make informed decisions about what's going on and what we're doing. People can't vote, and then make an informed decision. There's no real democracy making informed decisions if people don't know the truth about what they're voting for, what decisions they're making. So there are a number of extraterrestrials who believe that that's important, that it's important that people aren't lied to, that it's important we don't lie to the public, that it's important that we bring everybody into a truthful awareness. So there's been this conversation for decades on when that's supposed to be. The command staff feels like that and when I use this other that those within the covert military space program projects have delayed that process to the point of it harming civilization as we know it. And so the command staff decided, with a lot of other personnel, with a lot of other officers within Radiant Guardian, that they needed to pick a spokesperson to have a conversation, to talk to the general public. And there was a short list of officers, from what I understand, at first, and that was whittled down and eventually got to me. So,
were you reluctant in the beginning?
At first, oh yeah. When my brigadier asked me, he said, "Do you want to go public with your story?" I was furious. I said, "Are you kidding me? No, I absolutely do not want to go public with my story. I'm not going to be that guy.
I'm not going to be that guy.
I'm not going to be that guy. Are you kidding me? No, I don't want to do this." We had conversations, I would say, over about a 2-week period. It really took some convincing. He really had to kind of have a lot of conversations about the pros, the cons, what was better or not better about, me doing that. And I was convinced over time. But at first, no, I was incredibly reluctant and had no interest in doing this job whatsoever.
Well, I've got to tell you, Randy, I have interviewed in my career thousands of people, there's an element of belief to you. I'm looking for body language. I'm looking for signs, and I don't see it from you.
Well, when I was first talking with my brigadier and we were discussing how I should talk, or how I should present the information.
Have you been schooled in this interview?
No. Just like I said, in the very beginning, when my brigadier and I were having conversations about how to talk to people or how to talk to the public, and one of my questions was, "What do you want me to tell people? How do you want me to package information?
Yeah.
How do you want me to do this?" And he basically said, "It is the most important thing that you do nothing other than tell the truth." He said, "Don't package anything in a way that isn't truthful, that isn't honest. Don't misrepresent yourself in any way, shape, or form." He said, "The most important thing that we want you to do is be 100% honest, 100% truthful all the time." He said, "Now, there may be certain things that you don't want to tell people or you don't want to share because you think it may be a little too outside the box." And he said, "That's your call if you don't want to share."
I want outside the box.
He says, "If you've had an experience that you think is a little too outside the box and you don't want to talk about it," he says, "that's up to you." He said, "I just want to make sure that you understand you always be honest, you always tell the truth, and you never deviate from that as much as possible, because people can feel that, people can hear it, people can sense it, and the last thing we want is for people to think that you're not being honest or truthful." So from day one, I have endeavored to to sort of get out of my own way, as it were, when I talk to people about this, and just tell people the absolute truth from the best of my recollections of what I remember happened. So
let's talk about the moon trip first, and then Mars, and you can explain to us some of the things that I'm going to ask you in a second. When did the moon trip occur, the first one for you?
The first one?
Yes.
Oh, the first one would have been childhood.
They took you as a kid?
We started training when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old.
Well, now, we landed on the moon officially, 1969.
Unofficially, we landed on the moon a couple of decades before that.
So you think we went to the moon before Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
The military had the first lunar base, I believe, built about 1955.
Who might be the first American on the moon if it wasn't Neil Armstrong?
Some nameless covert military space program astronaut who will probably never know. I mean, I certainly don't know who it was.
Did anybody die of tragedy on the moon?
I would say almost certainly in the early days, because even though they were using advanced reverse engineered technology from extraterrestrial vehicles that we had recovered in the 40s, it's still the early days. So mistakes were made, and I'm sure people died in the process.
Did Armstrong and Aldrin know about this program?
There's some discussion about that, but most people internally agree that they had some briefing about that. In fact, they knew that when they got there, one of their main missions was to look for and or explore artifacts or a very old crashed vehicle
Or
on the dark side.
facilities? Did they find them?
My understanding is they did. My understanding that was part of their job, and they did. Yeah.
All right, so you go there as a kid.
Yep.
Why take a kid to the moon?
Training. The training process from 4 years old to 17 years old, it was vast.
Are you in a spacesuit over there?
No, most of the time it's in this base called Luna Operations Command, which is a vast underground facility that has some top ground facility, but most of it is, stories and levels and levels.
Do you
and
remember
levels.
landing there?
I can remember coming in a couple times on a TR-3B and entering into a hangar, coming down on an elevator. And
it closes.
And the elevator basically comes down onto a landing platform. It drops, turns out to be a large elevator. It drops down into the elevator. The landing platform closes, and then it's in a large hangar, which is like stacks and stacks of bookshelves.
All underground?
Yeah, except each bookshelf is a square unit that a ship can park into.
And how many people are with you on this journey?
It would vary, but I would say on the vehicle at any given time, anywhere from 15 to 30 other recruits or passengers.
Primarily kids?
Primarily of the same age group of whatever I was at the time. So if I was 5, it was a bunch of 5-year-olds. If I was 10, it was a bunch of 10-year-olds. If I was 13, it was a bunch of 13-year-olds.
So at what age did you stop going to the moon?
I mean, I don't know about stopped going. I mean, it was on and off all the way up until, my deployment to my tour when I was 17. And then the return trip was a stop at the moon. And
then you started going to Mars, which we'll get into in a second.
Right. And then after the tour of duty to Mars, it was another return trip back to Luna Operations Command for what they call age reversing.
What are they doing there?
What do you mean, what are they doing there?
Yeah,
like, what are they doing there?
They're there for a purpose.
What are they doing there?
What's the purpose?
To have the largest forward operating station for the covert military space program that's not based on planet Earth, because the most secure place you can have something is where no civilian can walk across a boundary line or cross a fence, and no one can walk across from here to the moon or across that fence, across that yard, so to speak, without a spaceship. So it's the most secure place to have a covert military operating facilities on the moon or farther out.
Amazing. It truly is a
But from what I understand,
story.
they're doing everything there. They do training there. They're doing science experiments there. There's a certain amount of civilian personnel that come to visit to observe what's going on in the covert military space program. There's financiers, bankers who are dealing with the money side of the program. It's a massive, massive military facility.
And the facility is just huge. How did they build it?
Over time, keep digging down and building larger.
So they
and
must
larger.
have sent equipment.
Oh yeah.
Digging equipment.
Yep.
So the size of the crafts to get that stuff there must have been huge.
Some of them were probably pretty big. Some of the early Aurora saucer craft are, the size of a football field. I mean, they're 100 meters, 300 feet wide or so. So they could, you could put a whole bunch of construction equipment on a vehicle that big.
The whistleblower William Tompkins talks a lot about this.
I was assigned to design for the Navy about 16, 18 different classes of U.S. Navy battle group ships, which didn't exist. And these were, the larger ones were from 1 kilometer to 6 kilometer. These ships fly in space. They're spacecraft carriers. I designed U.S. Navy spacecraft carriers, which finally got built back in the late 70s up in Utah underneath the ground. And you've seen the pictures of U.S. Navy spaceships, Solar Warden. So Solar Warden came out of a think tank inside of engineering at Douglas. And a whole lot of other stuff came out.
Why would he be lying?
Oh, he's not. No, I spent the end of my 20-year career as a pilot aboard the EDF-SS Nautilus. The Nautilus is one of those ships that's, a couple miles long.
One of his designs.
Yeah. It's basically an aircraft carrier that's like a long tube.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Randy, it's absolutely amazing, the story. So you're on the moon, you're doing things, you're doing studies. What was the time period you would stay at any given time?
I would say anywhere from about 16 hours to 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
So nothing really longer than that?
No, that was usually a training session.
Were they constantly replacing personnel, or were people there for 3-4 years?
I don't know what the typical tour of duty for people at Luna Operations Command is, but I know there is a constant rotation of personnel. When I was in the MDF, we had a weekly rotation of, we would lose people that would die, and then we would end up having, new people come in every week. We had the kitchen staff, the galley staff, which was basically civilian contractors who would come in and service, food would rotate out about every 3 or 4 weeks. So, they had a rotation that was about every month or month and a half.
Was there anybody born on the moon?
Not that I could say personally aware of. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point that was a scientific experiment to have
Because that
someone
would be
born
truly an extraterrestrial.
Right, they would
Right?
be. Yeah, absolutely. I know that the colonies on Mars have had people actually born on Mars since then who then are Earth transplants, but if they're born there, then they're not Earthlings
They're
anymore.
Martians.
They're human Martians, yeah.
They're Martians. I wonder if they're considered citizens of this planet.
They are not considered terrestrial citizens. They're considered citizens of the Mars colonies. And because of the gravity, they can never come back here.
All right, let's move on to Mars for a second. When you started going to Mars, did they have a fully equipped base at the time, or were you in its infancy as well?
Oh, no. I would say that everything had been well developed. I mean, I felt like when I showed up there, showed up in the middle of a well-oiled machine operation
Ready to
that had been
go.
going on for years before I got there.
What's the advantage of being on Mars? What are they doing there?
I don't know about the advantage, but they trying to sustain and defend the colonies, which I can't say I know much about. We never got to go to the colonies or see them. We were kept very separate from them. My understanding is the colonies are engaged in mining operations, agricultural operations, basically anything and everything that a colony would want to do to stay both self-sufficient and to be able to create enough excess of something to trade back to the planet or somewhere else for profits, because these have to be financially profitable ventures according to the financial people who are in charge of them. But as a military operative, our job was simply to occupy the base in which we occupied and to patrol and defend or protect a certain grid territory that was on our map to defend and protect.
Are other countries there?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say what they used to call the G8 countries, I would say that list of countries, there are personnel from all of those countries that are at some point in part of the covert military.
Did we bring them along?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those people, my understanding is that each country who participates takes personnel in a parcel, and that parcel is then handed over in a stack of paperwork to the covert military space program activities. Some bureaucrats, some low-level officers, junior officers at Luna Operations Command get that stack of paperwork on what that personnel is, and then their job is to assign those personnel to the various positions within the program that they need to put bodies into.
At any given time, because of space and distance, how long were you on Mars?
About little over 17 years.
70 straight?
Yeah, continuous. Yeah, absolutely. I lived there.
You were on Mars for 17 straight years?
17 years, 3 months, 14 days.
Did it
who's
feel
counting?
like a prison sentence?
No, I mean, it didn't feel like that. It felt like a lengthy deployment. You know, it felt like this is where we were going to be for a long time. I'd say after the first few years, we were pretty acclimated that this is just what we were going to do until, you know, we were not doing it anymore, until we either dead or got sent back.
Did you have a salary?
I was supposed to be accruing a salary that was supposed to go into an account that I was supposed to get later, but that turns out to be sort of a lie that they tell everybody.
So you got nothing?
Got nothing.
You were on Mars for 17 years. Of course, you didn't have to worry about rent.
No.
Food was provided.
Yeah, and health care.
And you thought you were earning
Accruing a paycheck that was going into an
that you
account that I
figured you
would
would
get.
have how much by the time you came back?
Oh, it should have been, you know, it should have been
$1
well
million
over, should have been well
plus.
over $1 million, yeah.
And you had nothing.
I got nothing.
Did you feel cheated?
Well, since I couldn't remember right away, I didn't feel anything about it. But once I started to remember the process, I got pretty angry about being cheated in that process. And I
Are
was
they
like,
stiffing everybody?
oh, absolutely. It's how they save money, you know, by not paying their person. There's essentially this very quasi-gray line with, you know, what's slavery and not slavery, which is another thing that a lot of our extraterrestrial friends are unhappy about, because there are other worlds that we have, you know, agreements and treaties with, who think that slavery is essentially an amoral, unethical activity, and that we have treaties and contracts signed that we're not supposed to engage in acts of slavery. So as long as we're doing things that are quasi-slavery, then we have these disagreements about what we're supposed to do about it.
So we're disclosing for the first time on this program that the secret space program isn't paying its employees.
A vast
Stiffing.
number of them. Yeah, a vast number of them are being told that they're going to be paid, going to be paid later, going to be told that they're going to get rotated back, get a nice cushy job, you know, with a pension. And
Sue
then
them,
getting
can
nothing.
you?
Well, I'm in a process with my congressman's office to get paperwork, to get papers, to get documents, and what should at some point end up probably in a settlement. But, you know, that's just going to take a
It'll
while.
be sealed, you know that.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I really don't care if, you know, they take me into a room and say, here, you can look at this, here, you know, we'll give
Here's
you
your
the settlement.
check.
But you can't ever talk about this. I'm fine with that. I understand the protocols, and I'm fine with that.
Well, you must be driving them crazy now, talking about things like
I
that.
know that some people are perfectly happy with what I'm doing because they know it needs to be discussed, and I know that there's other people who absolutely hate my guts for doing it. So, you know, whatever.
Tell me about Tony Rodriguez.
Nice guy.
Whistleblower?
I've spoken to him. He seems like a really nice guy, and he has a way of recollecting his version of events that seem incredibly legitimate to me, that recall events that seem beyond his ability to fabricate them. And certainly he has discussed a few different things that I have also experienced that, you know, make his recollection seem completely legitimate to me.
But these things are happening the way he described it.
I would suggest that. One of the probably most interesting things that I got to do when I was stationed on the Nautilus was go onto diplomatic missions, and diplomatic missions to the intergalactic space station that orbits around Jupiter, which is essentially a diplomatic meeting area for hundreds of species, and us and them
How many did you meet?
Meet personally, I would say several dozen. See hundreds, because the main meeting room is this large room that's like several hundred meters wide with, you know, floor to ceilings probably 70 or 80 feet high with, I want to say glass, but it probably wasn't, you know, silicon glass windows that went all the way around that you had this amazing view of.
Do they all look different?
As
species?
varied and different as you can possibly say. I would say the smallest extraterrestrial I ever saw was probably about 18, 24 inches high, and the largest one was probably 60 feet tall.
60 feet
Yeah, about
tall?
60 feet tall, yeah.
Did it look human?
Humanoid in the sense, you know, 2 arms, 2 legs,
Nose.
bipedal, you know, you could certainly identify it by looking at it, but I wouldn't say that it just looked like you or I 60 feet tall. It had some other sort of distinguishing features.
And would you say the ETs were all benevolent or not?
In that particular location, everyone who's there is there to have a conversation about trade, contracts, negotiations. So everyone's on their best behavior. Everyone's being nice. It's usually not a bunch of, you know, grunts, you know, arguing about it. It's diplomats, it's officers, it's people out of various, you know, ambassadorial or diplomatic corps having conversations. So everyone's pretty cordial there. Everyone is pretty cordial.
Captain Kramer, do you wake up sweating and upset?
I used to have night terrors. Yeah, I used to. I don't have them so much anymore. Lots of therapy has, gotten me to an okay place where I can talk about a lot of things.
Have
without
you
having
undergone
triggers.
psychiatric counseling?
I'm sure, absolutely. And I've had done counseling. I went to a psychiatrist for a while. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Medication?
Antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication for a little while to deal with the depression and the anxiety. Yeah.
You off that now?
Oh yeah, for years.
How many people do you think come out of these programs the same way?
I would say that most people come out of these programs having had a series of experiences that have either shocked them, traumatized them, or unnerved them in a way that they're psychologically unsteady because of it. And it takes, a certain amount of just going through some kind of healing process to get to be able to where you can feel stable again.
You served in the Marine Corps. You took an oath. I served in the Navy. I took an oath.
Yeah.
We feel as if we've done things for country.
Absolutely.
Do you think being in these programs, you've done something for our country, or do you feel used and abused?
I know that my oath was to protect my planet and my people from, anything and everything that could do it harm. And so in that sense, I feel like I've done my job, that I did what I was supposed to do. I certainly feel taken advantage by the bureaucratics in the system. I feel that my military commanders, did their best to train me the best that they could, to treat me the best that they could with respect and dignity and honor. And that they continue to do so. But there is definitely a disconnect between what certain military personnel think should happen and what is okay and the way to treat people and the way certain members of the bureaucratic administrative part think that it's okay to treat people. There's a major disconnect there for sure.
Do you have children?
None at this time.
All right. If you did, would you want them in this program?
That's a tough call. On the one hand, I wouldn't necessarily want them to have my experiences.
Right.
On the other hand, I would have to say that if that was, their destiny to have to go through that, then, I would just want to be the best parent in the world to try and support them in that process and their recovery in that process.
Would you go through what you went through again?
Not voluntarily.
You would not.
No, not voluntarily.
They'd have to take you.
But at the same time, I can't look back at those experiences and say I wouldn't want them as part of my life experience. They make me who I am, and they certainly are the best and the worst of everything that I've ever experienced. So that's a tough one. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go back and say, yeah, I volunteer to do this again, but I wouldn't go back and take it away either because there's too much value as a human being that I've gained from those experiences to want to undo them.
What would your commanding officer say once he sees this interview? Would he go, right on, Randy, you got the message out that we wanted you to, or you said too much? What would he say?
He's made it very clear that as the spokesperson, it's my job to just speak clearly and honestly and truthful, and that it's not up for anybody else to judge whether I'm doing the right job or not. The first couple of interviews that I did, I remember discussing this with him and asking him, did I do okay? And he kind of hemmed and hawed, and I was like, what did I not do? He's like, well, you kind of softballed a little bit. And I was like, what do you mean I softballed? And he said, well, you went out there not really being you. And I was like, oh, you mean you want me to sort of, curse and swear, yell and scream some more? And he was like, well, if that's you, then be you. He said, I don't want you to go out there and put on a presentation for people. I want you to go out there and tell people the truth and be you. So I felt like the first couple of interviews that I did, I was, trying to be a little stiffer.
Sure.
And, that his only advice was to just, loosen up and be you. And so the more I feel like I'm just being honest and being myself, then I'm doing the right thing. So.
Do you miss the program? Or does it feel good to be home?
Oddly enough, sometimes I do. There is a certain...
Did you make friends there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. There is a certain certainty about service in combat that makes your life black and white and clear.
Sure.
In certain ways. And I guess sometimes I miss that because trying to navigate civilian life is very cloudy and very gray sometimes, and it's not always so clear what you're supposed to do or what the right thing to do is or what choice A, B, C, D, or E you're supposed to take when you're serving in a military unit, it's much more clear, you do this, you don't do this. And so sometimes I miss that simplicity, sure.
What would you say, Randy, was your best experience, either on the moon or on Mars? That just was so fulfilling for you.
We were actually, my squad and I were captured by indigenous reptoids on Mars and spent 5.5 months living with them. And I would have,
Captured?
yeah.
Like they're not all friendly?
We were in a constant state of military combat with 2 indigenous species, an insectoid species and a reptoid species, which then got more complicated when the draconian invasion occurred, and then it was a very complicated sort of war conflict.
Was it violent?
Very, very violent on a regular basis. I mean, we were in probably active combat engagements every 3 to 4 days.
Did we lose personnel?
All the time.
And did they?
All the time.
What kind of weaponry would we use?
For soldiers on the ground, our primary weaponry is a magnetic propelled rifle or a Gauss gun or a rail gun that fires out, magnetically propelled slugs.
And if it hits one of these beings, what happens?
Depending on who it is, or depending on the size of the slug, it usually penetrates and goes right through them. I mean,
And kills them?
It doesn't necessarily kill them right away, depending on their internal structure. The indigenous reptoids had a double circulatory system. They had 2 hearts with what I would call an internal organ circulatory system and then a perimeter or external circulatory system. So you could shoot holes in their arms and legs and they wouldn't lose blood pressure. Well, they wouldn't lose blood pressure in their central organs. So you really had to aim for, you had to hit a couple vitals in the central area before they would go down.
So it's violent there.
Very, very.
It's not as friendly as one would think.
No, it's an incredibly violent experience.
Did you meet any ETs you liked?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like I said, when we were captured and we actually were, the whole purpose wasn't, to torture us for 5 months. The whole purpose was actually for us to live among them for 5 months so that we could go back with an experience to say, they're not all bad, and kind of have this conversation.
Where did you live with them?
In a subterranean community. They all live underground there.
On the moon or Mars?
On Mars, yeah.
On Mars. In their craft?
They have craft, but we didn't ever see them. They didn't ever use them. They had sort of chosen to live in a state of what I would say is sort of a more chosen primitive state than what their technology could allow them to do, because they feel that technology is what destroyed their atmosphere and nearly destroyed their planet in the first place, and so they were trying to live a little bit differently. But I would also, say that was specific to this particular group or tribe, this community or that lived in this particular area, that if you went global, with the indigenous reptoids, they're not all on the same page about that. And depending on what part of the planet you landed on or engaged with them with, would greatly vary the experience that you would have with them.
Can you describe what they look like?
Sure. I mean, they looked like a bipedal developed, what I would call sort of a rock lizard. So not like a crocodile or
Like
an
a
alligator.
gecko?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they have a shorter snout.
The insurance company, you'll love this one.
Have a shorter snout. They tend to have reddish to sandy colored skin or scales.
They walk upright?
Or walk upright on 2 legs. But there's quite a bit of variation in the patterning that can show up on their scaling. So they often would have black, yellow, red, some very interesting patterning on their scales.
Would you...
I would say they, height-wise, could vary from about 5.5 feet to almost 7 feet tall.
How do they communicate?
They communicate verbally. They can speak. Some of them are very developed and they can communicate psionically.
They have their own language, obviously.
Absolutely, they do, yeah.
How is their pitched voice?
I would say, again, that depends on the height, just like us. A bigger person with a bigger set of lungs is going to have a deeper voice and a smaller...
Not necessarily.
But, I would say that the main variation is in their tongue and their palate. So our tongue and our palate is a strong dictator in how our speech sounds. Their tongue and their palate is a strong dictator in how their language sounds.
So they're not as benevolent as one would think. Dr. David Jacobs may be correct when he says there's an evil presence with some of these.
I would say some of them are more enlightened than others, just like human beings are a little more enlightened than others. But, you know, like everybody, they can have an aggressive nature to them. They can have a warlike nature to them. And, you know, you get into a conflict with them and they can resort to their primal, angrier selves, just like we do in a combat situation. Some of the tribes are definitely very warlike. And if you met them, you'd probably just be food if you couldn't win the fight. So
They eat us?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So the Twilight Zone show, To Serve Man, was correct.
Well, I mean, you know, they certainly, some of them see us as a completely different species, a completely different type of animal, and so, you know, we can certainly be on the menu.
How many bases are there that we have?
Oh, I would say hundreds probably, but I have no idea the actual
Scattered
number.
all over the planet
Yeah, it would
of
be
Mars?
easily hundreds, if not thousands, but I couldn't give you a number.
What about the ETs?
I would say more. They probably have even more bases and more stations than we do, because there's at least 3 or 4 intelligent species that live on Mars. At least 3 or 4 that I'm aware of. I've only met 2 of them.
Are
but
we concerned that they're there? Because obviously we can't get rid of them.
I wouldn't say concerned. My understanding is the main purpose of continuing to engage in military conflict is to test weaponry and to test tools. So we certainly see that as a testing ground for, you know, military technology to just get better and better and better. So in some ways it's just what we do there, and it's, you know, it's a perfectly good testing ground for that material.
At this point, have you seen some of their craft up front? And personally?
Not the indigenous species on Mars. I've seen other extraterrestrial craft, but not the indigenous species who live on Mars.
And are we still recruiting people to go there?
Absolutely. I mean, some people are engineered from the ground up like myself and then parceled into a program and then deployed. Some people are recruited from covert black programs or other officer programs. Some people are requested or asked to, and some people are just, you know, told, you know, you're getting redeployed and get sent there.
Billy Carson has been on the Deep Space Gaia program, and he talks about recruitment.
Obviously, being recruited for missions such as Randy Kramer was on would have to be difficult to say the least. How could they get anyone to volunteer for such dangerous work?
I believe there are a lot of missing people on this planet. Thousands of people documented are disappearing every single year. Now, there's a book that came out called Alternative 3, and the third option was to actually have a breakaway civilization on another planet. And in this plan, they also needed to take people. You had to have people in specific industries, doctors. You had to have farmers. You had to have all different types of people from all different types of arenas, so that you can actually populate this new civilization and create the infrastructure. Along with that, it's very possible that they've used some type of an MK Ultra or mind-controlling device or even a serum to convince people or to take people off this planet.
What a story.
Yeah. I'm sure that happens all the time.
If you went out on the streets today, Randy, and polled people and told them your story, what do you think they'd say?
It depends on the person. You know, I certainly get enough random people who, you know, want to, you know, give me a high five and say, I totally believe you, Randy. And, you know, I get occasional hate mail from people who, you know, think that I'm fraudulent too. So
If Gaia paid for it, would you take a polygraph test?
in a heartbeat.
You would.
Not only would I take a polygraph test, you can give me a shot of tripentyl sodium in the arm, and you can give me truth serum, and I'll take a polygraph test.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They may do this.
In a heartbeat. Let's do it in a heartbeat.
Interesting take.
I've offered that a number of times, and no one's taken me up on it.
We could report the results on the program?
Absolutely. I've offered that a number of times, and no one's ever taken me up on it, but I do it in a heartbeat.
That would be intriguing.
In a heartbeat, yeah.
And if you pass it, it tells us volumes about what's going on.
I got no problem with that. I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it. I have thrown that gauntlet down for years, and no one's picked it up. So please, be the first.
We'll get our staff to work on
Do
this.
it.
And see where we can do it. You live on the Oregon side of the coast, right?
I do.
But we can get you back and probably do it here.
It's a short flight, yeah.
You know, some great law enforcement polygraph examiners.
That's what I've heard, so let's do it.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it. And they'll analyze you first, and they'll say he's qualified to do it. Some people aren't.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Where does this program go now, in your opinion?
It's just going to continue to go on and on and on and on. What we understand, one of the other main reasons why we feel that disclosure is fairly important, is this reason itself, is because there are personnel shortfalls. And as long as there are personnel shortfalls that we have to kidnap or force people into recruitment, we're in that, quasi-slavery area, which, violates treaties that we've signed with other species. And we think the most ethical way to go through with this is to have a publicly aware program so that people can volunteer. I can tell you right now, I get enough emails from people who are asking me, how do I volunteer? How do I become, I'm like, I'm surprised that you're even asking me that, but there are plenty of people who, if you gave them the opportunity to, go into a recruiting center and say, sign me up, they would sign up in a heartbeat.
Travis Walton, of course, from Fire in the Sky, who was zapped aboard a craft a long time ago, and was witnessed by his logger buddies, all passed polygraph tests, all of them.
Right.
They all passed polygraph tests. What does it tell you about these stories? Because there are a number of others out there like you who don't say what you just said. Put me through a polygraph test. What if they say, I don't want to do it? What does that tell you?
Anyone who's putting themselves in a gray area of not willing to be scrutinized is going to make me question whether they're being completely honest or not. I think that anyone who feels like they're coming from an honest place shouldn't shy away from that kind of scrutiny at all. They should be more than willing to be scrutinized if they're telling the truth.
I think so, without any doubt.
Yeah.
Without any doubt at all. And coming from someone like you who's been there before, would you say there are a lot of people out there who are making this up or jumping on this bandwagon?
I think there's a complicated answer to that, which is, from some of what I understand and have heard some people talk about their stories, I think you have a class of people who are absolutely, positively telling the truth to the best of their ability. I think you have some people whose information may have been tampered with in their own minds and their own brains, and so they're telling a version of events that other people want them to tell. I think that there are other people who have simply not gone through the personal memory recovering process or healing process to get to true, accurate recollections of their memories, so that they may simply be recollecting things that are not completely accurate. But I don't necessarily think that it's intentional. So, and I think there's probably one or two people that are just out and out might be lying. But I think it's, so far, most of the people that I have seen who are talking about this are putting themselves in a position of personal risk, or putting themselves in a position of not, there's nobody.
And why would they do that?
And there's nobody that I know who's making a bunch of money at it. So they're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the, maybe if they're doing it for, a teeny little bit of fame that they might be getting. But most of them are doing it because they feel like, it's their duty or part of, them being a part of a truth, movement to tell the truth. But again, whether they're actually telling 100% the truth or not is not necessarily up to them, or maybe they just haven't gone through a deep recollection process to get to the absolute truth. I can tell you that the memory recovery process was long, arduous, and complicated for me. And the main issue is that you're facing traumatic memories, and your brain doesn't necessarily want to face traumatic memories. So when you hit those traumatic memories, the first thing that it wants to do is steer you away from them. And so I can just say that it took an intense amount of personal will to just keep barreling through each traumatic memory, so that my mantra was, I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
So help you God.
Right, so that was what I got. But some people maybe haven't done that, and so maybe their brains haven't given them the complete truth that they should be telling the truth. But again, I'm not accusing anybody of, fabricating anything on purpose or telling lies on purpose, because I haven't met or talked to anyone who's doing that. Most of the people I'm talking to have either doing the best that they can to recollect the truth, or just might not have gotten to the truth, or in some cases may have had their brains tampered with in order to tell a version of events that is not completely accurate, but that someone else wants them to tell.
Captain Kramer, what is the 20 and Back program?
Well, they basically figure that a tour of duty, in order for them to make all their money back, requires a 20-year tour. So a 20-year tour of duty is essentially
a commitment of 20 years.
Yeah, you deploy someone for a 20-year tour of duty, and then you return them. And in the return process, they do what is called age reversing, but it really has nothing to do with that at all, because the body that you're in is pretty much so badly damaged that they have to, throw it in the trash bin.
After 20 years of space.
Yeah, so from what I understand, they basically have to hatch you out a new clone that's the same age that when you left and transfer your soul and your consciousness through some complicated technological
They
apparatus.
do that too?
It's a quantum fluid dynamic, from what I understand, that the soul is actually a quantum fluid dynamic, and so in that sense it can be removed from one vessel and put into another. And obviously I was unconscious for the process, so I can't tell you how it was done.
Was it done to you?
Oh, absolutely.
You're in a different body.
Yep, absolutely.
Yet your soul and your personality and everything, memory,
Yep.
has all been transferred.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure about the soul being able to do that. Memory, maybe. They may have that ability to download and transfer.
Well, again,
But I'm
my
not
understanding
sure
is
about
that the soul is a quantum fluid dynamic, and so being a quantum fluid dynamic, it can be quote unquote pumped from one vessel and put back into another. Again, that's not my area, so I couldn't tell you, how the science works behind that, but from what I've had, the way I've had it explained to me, that's how it's done.
What happened to your old body? Where is it now?
In the incinerator, I'm sure.
Does it bother you?
No, not really.
You feel like you?
It does. I mean, as much as it should be, because I look in the
Can I touch your hand
Yeah,
here?
sure. I mean, I look in the mirror and I see
human.
me. I see me looking back, so it feels like me as much as it could be. So,
Was this body made in a laboratory?
as near as I can understand. Yeah, hatched out of a clone. To
Same with your face and everything else. You're a total clone of who you were.
the physical body. Absolutely, yeah.
Yet you have memory from your past.
Right, because they take everything that's internal into the old body and put it into the new one, and you're just the same person. You look in the mirror, you're younger, but it's the same you.
Feels like the island of Dr. Moreau.
It's a little weird sometimes. If I think
got
about
it.
it, if I think
Jurassic
about it
Park
too
or
much, it
something.
will twist my brain a little bit. So I try not to think about it too much.
Is it difficult for you now to have a relationship because of all of this?
It can be a strain. It can be a strain.
Do you cry?
I can have all kinds of emotions about the process at different times, but I'm also completely okay with who I am. I'm completely okay with who I am. I'm okay being in the skin that I'm
Right.
in. I'm okay having my experiences that I've had. I'm okay knowing that I have to live my life the way that I have to live my life. So I'm okay with me.
And you would do it again.
And anybody who's not okay with me is, that's their problem, but not mine. So.
But you'd do it again, the same program.
Again, not necessarily by choice, but at the same time, I wouldn't undo the experiences that I've had.
Are you glad it's happened to you? Or would you prefer that it never did?
I kind of have to think of it like my tour of duty was like a giant crap milkshake filled with crap up to here with whipped cream and a cherry on top. And so I had to finish off a whole crap milkshake. But then at the end, there was this, whipped cream and cherry on the top that kind of almost makes it worth it, that I just wouldn't want to trade anything for. So I just accept both with that. I accept the good and the bad with that.
What's the title of your upcoming book?
We haven't secured the ISBN number for it yet, so I'm keeping it under my hat until we're actually done. But it will be, I don't know when we're going to air this, but it's from today's date. It should be any time within the next couple of months.
And
we should
it's
be
on
ready
this
for print.
subject matter, obviously.
Oh, it's the volume 1 of 3 that it's going to be of my memoirs, which will basically be my Mars
So
experience.
you're going public in a big way.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I've been told that I should work on it for the last 6 years, and it's just been such a traumatic process to sit down and try and write the experiences that it's just been a back and forth process, and I just kind of had to end up in my own psychological, emotional basement to be able to do it. So.
And you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
Captain, thanks for being on Beyond Belief.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, George.
Appreciate
It's
it.
my pleasure.
He says he'll take a polygraph test if offered to him. What an amazing moment that would be if he takes it and passes. I'm George Norrie, and thanks for watching Beyond Belief.